What's going on, family? I'm Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuff series. As I continue to do massive research on a project that I'm currently working on, I'll take you through a brief walkthrough on some of the things that I uncovered and what was so important of the black fighter's presence and what he had to go through and why he had difficulties getting title shots and opportunities that he so rightly deserved. You see, by 1760, the black population of Britain had grown from 20,000 to 40,000 in London alone. You see, Britain, you had 676,250 residents, but London grew from 20,000 to 40,000. This is very important. Extremely important. Why? Because Lord Chief Justice Mansfield, his historic decision to handle the runaway slave rule that was set by John Somerset, where slaves caught by Britain would not be deported with or without their will. Very, very important information. Now, this wouldn't happen in the United States until Reconstruction, 1865 to 1877, after President Lincoln was assassinated. You see, 1810, 55 years earlier, the very first black fighter of America, in fact, the first fighter of America to fight for a title. Now, he was the second fighter of America, but he was the first fighter of America to fight for a title against England's Tom Cribb, would be Tom Molyneux. And it would be a 33-round controversial fight. We'll talk about that in the book. We'll talk about that in further discussions. July 23rd, 1778. Black Higgins would face Joe Woods. Higgins was 15-0 at that time as a prize fighter. 1786, Unknown Black, April 27th, 1786. In 1791, Joe Lashley, the African black, is reported as being the first black fighter of significance in the world of pugilism. In 1796, it's said that Joe Lasky had killed Stewie the Brakeman, according to Ring Magazine's editor, Nat Flasher. The first Negro fighter was Tom Treadwell. Now, Tom Treadway had a brother named Bill Treadway, but Tom was the fighter. The first colored fighting champion was Daniel Knox. Richard K. Fox, who was the editor of the Police Gazette magazine, saw a market for black fighters facing one another when they would be seen having pennies thrown at them in back alleys and study halls as drunken white men would use those moments of entertainment These moments were called the Battle Royale, where you would have 10 men, possibly 20, mixed boys and grown men, blindfolded, with pepper powder inside the blindfolds. These men would beat each other half to death. Some of them would have one glove on, and the other hand would have no glove. Some of those gloves had pepper powder on them. Some of them had their arms tied around their back. And they would have to beat each other until they were the last man standing. And then they would have fight to the death match. Sometimes in backwoods, the winner of the Battle Royale would face the last winner They would have their wrists tied together with one hand, and one man would have his hand wrapped with soaking whiskey and glass tied or glued together on that wrap. It was designed so that one man would not be left standing. Only one man would survive. The other one was guaranteed to die. Well, Richard K. Fox saw a market for this, and he would call it the Colored Championship Contest. He saw that white establishment were not giving black fighters opportunities. He saw he could make tremendous amount of money and gambling opportunities. He saw that he could take land away from other farm owners with these opportunities. And so the Battle Royale would now become the Colored Champions. And the first Colored Champion discovered by Richard K. Fox was Daniel Knox. He was a big man who would always come out on top. He was unfortunately thrown in a pot full of boiling hot water. He would fill that boiling hot water himself with a 5-ounce cup of water. Took him almost a month to fill. And he would light the pot with heated flames with wooden leaves. And when it got boiling hot, he had to jump in. This is because he didn't win a fight, and it cost one of his plantation owners a part of his land. So the Colored Championship Division was now formed. Started out as heavyweight, then middleweight, then as it went to welter and lightweight, then light heavyweight. And we'll go through all that in our reads when this project is completed. Now, the first recorded black battle took place in 1796. Now, Black Higgins and Joe Woods, 1778, was a major situation that took place during that time. And battle royales that took place between 1800 and 1932. Major players between 1800 and 1930 would be George Dixon, Jack Johnson, Jack Blackburn, Joe Gans, Dixie Kid, Barbados Joe Walcott, Bo Jack, Elmer Violet Ray, just to name a few. You would have names such as Tom Molyneux, the Virginia Slave, 1810 to 1815. Bill Richmond, the Black Terror, 1804, 1818. Henry Sutton, the Game Black, 1816, 1819. Sam Robinson, the Handyman, 1800 to 1815. James Walton, the Morocco Prince, 1833 to 1840. Massa Kendricks, the New Black. Sambo Sutton, the Grosqual, 1839 to 1848. Young Richmond, the Athlete, 1821 to 1822. Bob Travers, the Black Wonder, 1854 to 1864. Bob Smith, the Liverpool Darky. John Perry, the Black Sailor. Jimmy Robinson, Young Norky's Black. You would have Jonathan Banks, the Darky Wizard, 1878 to 1885. Harry Woodson, the Black Diamond, 1883 to 1887. George Godfrey, Old Chocolate, 1879 to 1895. Peter Jackson, Black Prince, 1883 to 1899. Edward C. Rowlands, Old Starlight, and Samuel Grant, the Indian Darky, just to name a few. I further learned about Jeff Clark, the Joplin Ghost. Winlock Jefferson Clark was also known as the Fighting Ghost. Born Morrisville, New Jersey, June 28, 1886, and he died Joplin, Missouri, May 1st, 1952. He was 65 years of age at the time of his death. And he would have a record of 140 total bouts, 93 wins, 71 knockouts, 30 losses, 13 knockouts, and 15 draws. Let me tell you about some of these losses. And that's the reason why I say that you must judge a fighter in the time in which he came, because it was different in each era. There were improvements made as time went by. You see, if you lost the fight because you didn't stop a man in a certain amount of rounds, you lost the fight because you were not the betting favorite. Many reasons why you would lose a fight. So on your record, a lot of those losses may or may not be legitimate losses. So you have to take that under consideration. A lot of black fighters had to throw fights or carry their opponent. Now, Jeff Clark stood 5 foot 11 inches. He was a heavyweight and had a 79-inch reach. Fought from 1908 to 1924. He was in a ring with fighters such as Dixie Kidd and Larry Temple, Dave Holly, and Battling Jim Johnson. Battling Jim Johnson would be the first black fighter to fight another black fighter for the heavyweight championship title. He would fight in 1913 against Jack Johnson. Larry Temple was the inventor of the Bolo Punch. Dixie Kidd was the second colored welterweight champion. He was the second black established world welterweight champion. He would defeat the Barbados Demon Joe Walcott. That's a story in and of itself. Mike Donovan, Professor Mike Donovan, who was a middleweight champion. Black Bell, Young Jack Johnson, Jim Barry, Joe Jeanette, Willie Meehan, Roughhouse Ware, Harry Wells, Sam Langford, Kid Norfolk, Ed Gunboat Smith, Jack Thompson, Zulu Kid, Jamaica Kid, Joe Jeanette. These are some of the fighters that the Joplin Ghost will be in a ring with. Jack Blackburn, Chappie. He was born May 20th, 1883, and he died April 24th, 1942 in Chicago. He would suffer from pneumonia and a heart attack. Be in the ring with Sam Langford 6 times, Joe Gans, Dave Holly, Panama Joe Gans, Philadelphia Jack O'Brien, Mike Twin Sullivan, Larry Temple, Harry Greb, Pittsburgh Windmill. Jack Blackburn was convicted in 1909 and 1914. Lost 4 rounds, June 22nd, 1920. Trained fighters such as Jersey Joe Walcott, Holman Williams, Sammy Mandel, Charles Bud Taylor, John Henry Lewis, Joe Lewis, Lou Ambers, just to name a few. He's in the Boxing Hall of Fame as a trainer and not as a fighter. I find that to be just as confusing as why Harry Wiley Sr. is not in the Hall of Fame as a trainer. Boggles the mind. I further learned about Panama Joe Gans, who was known as Cyril Quinton Jr. He stood 5 foot 7 inches as welterweight and fought as middleweight. He was Barbadian, born November 14th, 1896 in Barbados. He would die January 26, 1983. He was 86 years of age at the time of his death and had the pleasure of meeting Panama Joe Gans. He had a record of 134 total bouts, 90 wins, 43 knockouts, 13 losses, 11 draws, and 2 no contests. Now, Panama Joe Gans became the Panamanian light heavyweight champion October 10th, 1915. He was 18 years of age when he would accomplish that feat. He would defeat young Sam Langford at the Pacific Theater in Panama City. Fought him in the 20th round, pinned him up against the ropes, and beat him until he stopped the fight. November 30th, 1916, he knocked out Benny McGovern in 3 rounds. He would win the Colored World Middleweight Championship title. December 19th, 1920, when he would defeat, in New York's Madison Square Garden, a fighter by the name of Larry Estridge would defeat him for that title. And Larry Estridge, I had the pleasure of meeting him. He lived in the Bronx. He was known as the Black Stanley Ketchel. He was a southpaw, tall, had a bald head. Always reminded me of Marvelous Marvin Hagler. And Larry Estridge was some fighter. He really was. But I also looked at Tiger Jack Fox, who was known as John Linwood Fox. Stood 5'11.5", had a 75-inch reach, had a record of 180 total bouts, 140 wins, 89 knockouts, 23 losses, and 12 very suspect losses of the 23. And he died April 6, 1954. There were claims that Tiger Fox was involved in a scandal. John Henry Lewis would have to fight Tiger Jack Fox. And they would strip John Henry Lewis of one of his titles. He had the New York Sack and the NBA. But because of an eye examination test, the physician had recommended to the New York State Athletic Commission that he not fight Tiger Jack Fox. And since he couldn't fight Tiger Jack Fox because he was recommended not to by his physician, he would be stripped of his title by the New York Sack. Now, he would defend the NBA title against Al Gaynor in Connecticut. He would win that fight. But he would be stripped in the New York Sack. And so that's why Tiger Jack Fox and Milo Patina, who was a southpaw, would fight for that title. Patina would win and take on Billy Conn to unify the title. Conn would defeat Milo Patina. Conn did not give Archie Moore an opportunity. He would relinquish the title, move up to heavyweight, and he would challenge Joe Louis. A very good fighter was John Henry Lewis. Panama Joe Gans, Larry Estridge, Tiger Jack Fox. As I looked into further information of Allentown Joe Gans, Joey Hicks, born May 6, 1894, in Portsmouth, Virginia. He would die August 12, 1953 in New York, and you're looking at a man who stood 5'9.5", weighed 155 to 165 pounds. And he faced Harry Greb, Maxie Rosenblum, Joe Walcott. He was in the ring with Walcott and Langford, Larry Estridge, and many greats of his time. William Gorilla Jones, Landon Jones, was born May 12th, 1906 in Memphis, Tennessee. He would die January 4th, 1982. 75 years of age at the time of his death. He would reside in Los Angeles, California. I had the pleasure of meeting Gorilla Jones. He himself was something else. You hear me talk a lot about Harry Smith, the Harlem Thunderbolt. Born October 28, 1907 in Kingston, Jamaica, died September 19, 1933 in Chicago, Illinois. Stood 6'1", weighed 155 to 176 pounds, and he was managed by Dave Brown, had a record of 60-0 with 55 knockouts as an amateur. He He would win an inner city middleweight championship title, the Canadian Amateur Championship title in the middleweight division, Metropolitan Amateur Championship. That wouldn't happen again until Ray Robinson would do it in 1938. Man from Harlem would win that title. Homer Robinson, Frank Rousey, Jimmy Francis, and Babe McCartney. This man was something else. 1929, he would take the color middleweight championship title away from the pride of Harlem, whose name was Jack McVeigh, Julius Williams. He stood 5'9" as welterweight and middleweight champion. Born June 8, 1905 at Athens, Georgia. He died October 29, 1975 in Harlem, New York. He was 70 years of age at the time of his death. And he had a record of 89 wins, 41 losses, 29 knockouts. 1920 to 1936. This man was something else as well. I told you a lot about Lynn Johnson of England. Bobby Dobbs was born October 13th, 1922. And he died April 2nd, 1986. Had the pleasure of meeting Bobby Dobbs. Stood 5'8.5", Carterville, Georgia. He had 222 total bouts, 120 wins, 47 losses, 80 knockouts, and 39 draws. This man was something else. Harlem, New York. My grandfather knew him. Incredible fighters they were at that time. So just walking through you briefly, I should say walking with you briefly through some of the information that I gathered. It's fascinating. Fascinating to say the least. I'm Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuff series. All great fights and all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. Thanks for listening, and thanks for giving this listener an opportunity. It's really fascinating as you do research on things that you don't quite have a grasp and understanding of as to why things happen the way they happen. I didn't get into Charlie Burley. I didn't get into Sam Langford. I didn't get into any of the fighters who were uncrowned champions. They're all in the book. They've all been studied. They'll all be in the information that you will be receiving when this project is over. But rest for sure, these were great fighters. As I met Kid Chocolate, as I met Ray Robinson, as I met Henry Armstrong, as I met Charlie Burley, as I met Elmer Violent Ray, as I met Gorilla Jones, Archie Moore, on and on, Bo Jack, Ike Williams, Bob Montgomery, Harold Johnson. Wow. It's incredible. Thanks for listening. Peace.